Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. Dan Lush, joined by my pal, all the way from sunny, glistening Minnesota, Big T, Taryn Sharma. What's up, my man?
Yeah, it feels like the first week of fall. Summer's over. Everything is terrible.
I agree. Doom and gloom. This past weekend was technically the end of summer. My kids are getting all sad. They're going back to school. Listen, when you're starting first grade in pre-K, it's all exciting for the kids. The kids love it, right? They don't really know the difference between summer and school because it's all recess and hopscotch and rainbows. For the parents, school's a lot more work. It's a lot more work. So we're back. Speaking of school, my law school started back up. New York Law School. I'm teaching again this semester. My fifth semester. So we got the syllabus. We got a lot of just things going on. Taryn, your boy, I told you. I know you know the answer to this, but there's not that much gas in the tank today. I'm running about 5.5, 6 hours of sleep the last 2 days. We get these things in. Now, at the advice of counsel, I am recording this podcast with you at a time that's unknown. It could be really dark out, or it could be really early in the morning. But we don't know. We have no idea what time it is.
No clue.
But here's the thing. As I'm a big preacher of all things, you got to get your billable hours in. You got to get your work done. And then when you get your work done, there's always time for play, marketing, stuff on the top. That's like the icing on the cake. Good lawyering. You got to do your billables. You got to get your work done. And then any firm you're at, any good firm should be okay with you doing the stuff on top. Fair, Taryn? Do we endorse that statement?
Yeah. And you mentioned school starting back up. We're entering our 4th year of the Sports and NIL clinic at the University of Minnesota Law School.
Let's go.
We've got a bigger group this year. We've added a couple more students and really excited. There's a ton of energy for the program and for it to continue to grow. That's exactly what I envisioned when I was entering law school. And credit to you, Dan. Wouldn't have been possible without you.
How about credit to Chris? Does Chris get some credit?
Definitely credit to Chris, but Chris knows that he gets credit.
Oh, the audience doesn't know if Chris gets credit.
I'm telling you.
If Chris was listening to this podcast, he'd be like, whoa, who's this Dan guy? I should get some credit too. Chris Pham, shout out to Chris Pham. Belated mazel tov to Chris Pham, right? Welcomed a child into the world. That's Taryn's boss. We got to, as the kids say, we got to glaze up Taryn's boss as well, just in case he's listening. Okay. I'll say this as a quick PSA. Taryn, you told me not to say this, but like, not gonna say anyone's name. I'm just gonna say it. We did an episode on we didn't really talk about anything substantive on an OCI level, but we just said, I think I gave some little tips and tricks to OCI, what to do, what not to do. So yeah, one of our OCI candidates apparently was listening to the last episode, doing the right thing, doing their prep on their interviewees before the podcast. I have no issue with that. Do your prep on your interviewees, important. Now, what I would not recommend doing, and I strongly emphasize not recommend doing, is during the interview announcing that you've like basically said the choir part out loud. Dan, I listened to your podcast and now I know what to do and what not to do. So that did not go well. That did not go well in any way, shape, or form. It looked bad. It looked like, hey, I got an A on the test because I had the answers ahead of time, not because I studied so hard. And let's just say my colleagues, I'm sure, went back and listened to that OCI episode because it seemed like I was saying a lot of things I shouldn't say, which, let the record reflect, I didn't say anything bad. But, let's use some common sense. So don't do that. But other than that, take all of our advice. Just not that.
Or just be cool.
Be cool. Yeah. Don't say the choir part.
Yeah.
Okay. So we took a little bit of a hiatus. We took about 2 weeks off as we were kind of alluding to. Just sometimes life is busy, but we're going to come back. Listen, we didn't become a top 10 sports law podcast in the world by not coming back for more and more and more. Our last episode with Don Van Natta was one of our most listened to episodes of the year as we wind it down. And we got a lot of good feedback on that. I think we got and I always appreciate, shout out to Mike Kravchenko, who does our clips. I always like to put the clips out there. People can see what they're missing. There's so many weird podcasts, Taryn, that I listen to now because I saw a weird clip pop up on Instagram. So every once in a while, we'll have to let the outside world in. But I'm totally cool with our little sports law community here at large. Okay. Taryn, that said, there was a topic this week that, despite the lack of sleep, despite school starting, despite my nanny quitting. And Taryn, if you want me to leave a what to watch for, you asked me about my nanny at the end, but it's on you to remind me of this. I have a good story. My nanny that quit after a day, not the happiest camper right now. Chaos in the Lust household, but we're making it through. Chaos. Absolute chaos. I see you're intrigued, but we're going to leave it for the end of the podcast, but it's on you to remember. Okay. The Kawhi Leonard story I find to be a very interesting story. We're going to talk about that. That's one that's kind of percolated the sports law world. This one was last week. I hope this has reached everyone. If it hasn't, this is one of those times where you're gonna hear this. I'm gonna tell you to watch the video, and then you're gonna come back to us. This was the Raja Jackson, who was the son of Rampage Jackson. He's like a kind of lower level amateur MMA fighter, but son of obviously Rampage Jackson, who, if anyone knows MMA, pretty big name in the space, obviously retired. Raja Jackson showed up in an independent wrestling show. And if you just watch the video, trigger warnings, whatever I need to tell you, it's really bad. It's really ugly. It's when fake becomes real and real becomes potentially quasi-criminal. And it was the talk of, at least in my circles, the sports world, whether and to what extent that will result in a criminal charge. Talk about that. We'll talk about the College Sports Commission report. And I think that's it. We'll see what comes up in our timeline. I have a best bet of the year. You can lock this one in. So I will give that at the end of the show. I've done my research. I try to come. There's been years where I've been very hot. This one I feel very confident in. Taryn, I'm going to see if you and I will ride together. Listeners of the show can take the bet. And maybe just like our Caitlin Clark leading the WNBA in three-pointers bet, maybe if you can show me proof of the said bet, we'll send you some merch, win or lose. Okay. Taryn, I've talked a lot. My voice is just coming back because, it's a very rough week. Lead us off, Kawhi Leonard. What's going on with Steve Ballmer over in La La Land?
Yeah, in an age where there is so much tampering, there are owners trying to hunt down DeAndre Jordan in their neighborhoods, convince them to sign. There are a few things that are still sacrosanct, and one of those is the salary cap and not manipulating the salary cap, especially in the era of the aprons, the first and second apron. This story, I think, has really rocked the basketball world. For anyone that doesn't know, and even my mom asked me about this, so I feel like it's broken containment of just sports fans. Kawhi Leonard had an agreement with a entity called Aspiration. This is a startup. They said that they were going to plant a bunch of trees, and Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, the sixth richest person on planet Earth, was one of their investors. He had invested some $50 million into this company, which subsequently went bankrupt. Now, the NBA has opened an investigation after Pablo Torre's reporting alleged that Kawhi Leonard received roughly $28 million via a no-show endorsement-like arrangement. So this was payable over 4 years. It was $7 million a year. And the allegation here is that this arrangement, whereby Leonard did zero promotional activity for Aspiration, was used to skirt the salary cap. So if this is true, there could be potential fines, draft penalties, suspensions, and it really puts a spotlight on how Ballmer, who has used his own funds to build the Intuit Dome, the arena, who has hired a ton of analysts and built up their basketball operations department in LA since owning the team, how owners and teams can use that outside money to attract big name free agents.
So let's take a trip down memory lane, Taryn. So first of all, that was a very good background. And for reference, I remember where I was, Taryn. I think you and I are just starting to talk on social when this came up. This was probably 2019, right around there. This is when Kawhi makes this big splash. He's flirting with the Lakers. He's flirting with all these teams, and he picks the Clippers, which everyone's like, that was weird. Like, no one expected him to go to the Clippers. And, we can talk about how it hasn't worked out, but that's not really It's not really the part that we need to talk about. We have to talk about the inducement. So obviously there's all allegations, right? Pablo Torre is a respected journalist. He's broken big stories in the past. Obviously was at ESPN for many years. If you come with this level of a story, unless you are completely like off off the grid and no one knows who you are, like that's one thing. Pablo Torre is a respected journalist, so we have to give this story, its due weight. This is a very big story. Why is it a big story? We haven't seen a story like that in the NBA in years. But Taryn, very recently, we talk about history and precedent. We saw this not so long ago in the WNBA with the Las Vegas Aces. Taryn, do you remember this?
No, I don't. Remind me.
And we're going to have a constant theme here in the biggest time this has happened. 2023, the Las Vegas Aces were accused of exactly that. The WNBA, right, the women's league, has a much shallower cap. There's really not much you can do with it. Even Caitlin Clark, I think, earned some like ridiculously low amount of money. It's like 60,000, 70,000 on the books. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's less than six figures. And that's just the way that the league and the CBA has been governed to make sure the league is like managing their losses. And the WNBA is not profitable. The NBA is certainly not yet. The NBA is profitable, but it's a system, the salary cap that the owners put in place that's clearly a restraint on trade. It's clearly a restraint on the free market. But to the extent that the league and the employees via their CBA is the union bargaining for it, they can agree to depress the salary cap. Now, why would players ever agree to that? They would because of some other concessions, right? Taryn, at some point, you and I are going to talk about the MLB collective bargaining agreement they're trying to agree to. The owners want a salary cap. The players aren't letting it happen.
The owners have always wanted a salary cap.
Right.
It leads to cost certainty. There are a ton of benefits to the owners. Why it happened in basketball initially is because the owners actually opened their books and showed that they were suffering great losses and that the league's franchises were poised to fold if they did not have a salary cap. But not every league is willing to do that, and not every league can show that exact set of circumstances.
So, and it's very important history, and the salary cap works if all teams agree to abide by the rules. So salary cap circumvention, there haven't really been that many examples where teams have been caught and punished for it. But when they're caught and when they're punished, those punishments are severe. 2023, this happened with the Las Vegas Aces, this big allocation. People were getting paid off the books. Essentially, there was a player that got that I'm going to say allegedly, but whatever, they got punished after the fact, that was on the Aces and then got traded to a different team. And then when she got traded to the different team, allegedly was the whistleblower and said, hey, by the way, those Aces that are doing so well, they're one of the best teams in the league, they're cheating. And, hostile witness all of a sudden. So the team lost their first round pick in 2025 WNBA draft. The head coach, Becky Hammond, was suspended for unrelated issues, but it was all tied with this. I teach this issue in my class. It's the De'Erica Hamby case. People want to just do some light Googling. You can. This Hamby, let's just say, let it fly. She exposed all the skeletons and left a wake of destruction in her path. Okay, so we talk about De'Erica Hamby, number one. On the other side, Taryn, we have to talk about Joe Smith in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Remember this one?
To mind immediately.
I don't Minnesota.
I didn't remember it when it happened because I was like 5 or 6 years old. But I've read about it subsequently.
Okay, so he signs with the Timberwolves, former first-round pick of the Golden State Warriors. So he doesn't sign a max contract. So the thing with Kawhi, which is interesting, Kawhi signs a max contract, and
Kawhi always signed max contracts.
Right. Kawhi Leonard signed a max contract. And Pablo Torre is alleging that in addition to the maximum contract, which is another advent of the collective bargaining agreement, that on top of the max contract, that he, on top of that, is getting his $28 million. So that's interesting. Joe Smith didn't sign a max contract. He signed a contract that was of a lower value than what should have been expected. So a below market value.
Below market value, yeah. Okay,
so he signs this below market value, which people think that's weird. Joe Smith, former first overall pick. Why is he signing such a low deal? And then it comes out that the Minnesota Timberwolves were going around the salary cap and giving him some side deals.
Yeah, so, and the interesting thing there is that they were trying to leverage the rules. So whereas this would be totally outside the rules, right? They were trying to manipulate the rules to get his bird rights in order to then sign him to a contract that would not be constrained by the cap.
Correct. Independent of the motivation, what's true, it's not true. What we do have ultimately is like the death knell, right? A $3.5 million fine, which you might say is no big deal, $1 billion of owners. How about this one? Loss of 5 first-round picks. That's pretty bad. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. And I think they end up getting one back. The contract was voided. So Smith then becomes a free agent. So you get all these penalties, all the fines, this, loss of draft picks, and you don't even get the player. So that was 1999. We have not had a punishment that severe ever in my lifetime. So that they really did that to avoid this scenario. So now we're 26 years later, and this is happening again. So Taryn, I think the part that took you and I surprised, Pablo Torre announces it. Everyone's, wow. The NBA puts out a statement that they're actually looking into this as a formal investigation. So, it's A, surprising, but B, something that we need to take notice of because of the incredible punishments. And now, Taryn, I'll say this last piece. Pablo Torre the next day comes out and says, by the way, a lot of people are calling me on Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's got a lot of enemies, and they're calling up the Pablo Torre line. So the Knicks fans in my circles, they're getting a little concerned. I don't know why Torre would say that unless he had some meat on the bone. Obviously, he hosts a podcast. He wants to get clicks and all that. But that's, again, speaking about defamation and whatnot, like you hope he has the juice to back that up. Me as being a New Yorker, that doesn't sound too good. And Brunson similarly signed a max contract as well.
Right, but not initially, right? His initial contract that he had signed with the Knicks was not a max deal, was it?
Oh, you might be right. Recollection serves. Maybe you're right. Oh, that would add a little bit of credence to the. That's interesting.
And on the most recent deal, I think that he left a little on the table.
Well, Taryn, stop pointing out things that make a lot of sense for a circumvention deal.
But look, I thought that when Brunson signed with the Knicks that they had done the classic, I'm going to hire your family member as a coach, and then come and join. That, which, it happened with Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State, right? They hired his brother as an assistant. I find it really interesting because there was initially like a lot of chatter about why Kawhi chose the Clippers. He was in a situation where he had a good team around him. Maybe he didn't like being in Canada, but they had won the finals in 2019. Made the decision that he was going to leave. Well, why did he go to the Clippers? Why didn't he go to the Lakers? There were some other spots that would have been really good fits for him. And there were a lot of questions about that at the time, as you mentioned. And the NBA, I believe, looked into that and was not able to find anything at the time. But now, the fact that Pablo Torre was able to identify these mechanics, which, the money is being paid through an LLC, and that LLC is managed by Kawhi Leonard. It mentions it's a KL2 Aspire LLC. That's obviously his initials and his number. So, and this concept of the no-show job, I think, is significant as well, right? It's not that an NBA player couldn't get an endorsement deal for tens of millions of dollars. They obviously do all the time. But this concept of the no-show job, which I think most of us know from like The Sopranos, right? Showing up at a work site and just kind of sitting around in a lawn chair. That is essentially this is the modern day equivalent of that, where Kawhi is not required to actually promote anything. I saw like one tweet that like, happy birthday, Kawhi, for every retweet, Aspire is going to plant a tree. So, beyond that, I don't think that there has been any significant involvement that anyone has uncovered, and the internet is forever. So obviously if that existed, it would have shown up. So I believe that there are a lot of owners that are going to be upset about this, that they don't want to allow for somebody like Ballmer, somebody like Mark Walters, who's now going to own the Lakers, to be able to circumvent the cap and be able to take advantage of their vast personal wealth to agree to these off-book deals. So I would be surprised if, given all of this evidence, and Tory says that he reviewed hundreds of documents, he's got this guy with the like voice changer attesting to it, that this was specifically the goal was to circumvent the salary cap. If all of that is borne out in the NBA's investigation, I would not be surprised to see significant penalties for Ballmer, to the extent that that even matters, right? This is a guy who has so much money that maybe there isn't a number that you could put on a fine that would actually have meaning, or to the team to have significant penalties in terms of being able to sign, being able to utilize the full cap, being able to utilize certain rights to be able to go over the cap, and draft picks. To their end, the Clippers have denied that they have any knowledge of wrongdoing here. And I think that, so we mentioned the Joe Smith scenario. One of the penalties for Glenn Taylor, the owner at the time of the Timberwolves, was that he was banned from being involved in the operations, I believe, for a full year. And maybe that is something that would hit home for Ballmer. He's always in the front row. He's a super fan of the team. That could be a significant penalty that actually affects him. So it's definitely something that we'll have to keep an eye on and see who comes to the defense of Ballmer and the Clippers, who else may be involved in these types of arrangements, and see how the NBA is actually going to police this. Because if it's true, it's wildly unfair.
Okay, Taryn, let's move over to topic number 2. Before we do that, a reminder, podcast sponsored by the top bar prep company in the entire world. Themis Bar Review.
Just say Galaxy, dude.
No, I mix it up. Sometimes it's world, sometimes it's galaxy. I'd say people it's galaxy, but then like I'm like kind of like marketing to the aliens, and the aliens, like I don't know what jurisdiction they're in. Like the world is pretty helpful. We could say the United States. You could say that. That doesn't sound as cool, but like that's probably what's going to bring in the customers.
North America.
The Americas.
The America. Europe.
The Americas. It's basically the America's Cup of bar review companies, and they win it because they're the best.
They win it.
Speaking of, Taryn, I hate going down weird things. I hate saying weird things in the podcast. I hate revealing weird things that I do. Speaking about Galaxy, speaking about weird things. So I have a daughter now who's 6. We're going to get to Roger Jackson in a minute, but sometimes we just have to have fun in the podcast. Just tune in because we'd like to talk about fun stuff. My daughter's 6, loves mermaids. She has discovered YouTube, loves YouTube. Okay. And sometimes you search for mermaids and Ariel comes up. No issues with Ariel. Ariel's great. She's lovely. Then there's like other cartoons you guys don't know about that have mermaids in them. No big deal. Now, Taryn, if you watch enough mermaid videos, you're going to end up with some weird mermaid videos, some weird ones. Taryn, are you aware that there's a culture and there are people in this world that treat mermaid sightings like alien sightings? Were you aware of this?
I was not. That seems like a TLC show.
It is a TLC show because the History Channel did a whole thing on it. Listen, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but my daughter's 6. She loves shows like this. She loves learning about the Loch Ness Monster. She now loves Bigfoot. She's getting into this. And I'm familiar with them, familiar with their game. You listeners might not know this, but I've known about this guy for years. The Chupacabra, El Chupacabra. People know what El Chupacabra is. Taryn, familiar with El Chupacabra? I'm a man. I have an inquisitive brain, right? I have never heard of these mermaid mysteries. I've never heard of them. And, when I used to watch, Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack back in the day, they never did mermaids. They covered El Chupacabra. They covered Roswell. They didn't cover the mermaids. Taryn, I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to say this because I don't want people to think I'm a total weirdo. Roswell is to aliens as, watch this, I want to see your face on this, as blank is to mermaids. What is the mermaid sighting capital of the universe? I'd love for you to guess this, Taryn.
The Rock of Gibraltar.
That was a good guess. Taryn, I'm going to shock you here, okay? It is one of the 50 states.
Colorado.
Alaska. Alaska is the Bermuda Triangle of mermaids. Everyone there sees mermaids. Okay? You go to New Mexico, you go to Roswell, you're going to see an alien. You go to Alaska, apparently you're going to see a mermaid. I don't know, Taryn.
Likely place for them to be.
I guess. I don't listen. I'm just reporting what I saw on a crazy YouTube show. And
can I say one thing? I thought that this was going a totally different direction. I thought you were going that photo of Jordan Hudson being caught by Bill Belichick while wearing a mermaid costume, since they lost by like 100.
Sure, that's exactly what I was saying. But yeah, that's what we do in the Lust household. You're going to start hearing. Okay. Anyway, we're good. Let's move on to the next topic as we make a very smooth transition from mermaids to attempted murder. Terrible transition, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, so moving to a much more serious note, and just again, I alerted trigger warnings, whatever I needed to tell you at the beginning of this podcast. So Raja Jackson is the son of Rampage Jackson. If you haven't heard about this, I suggest pausing the podcast right here, a little pause action. Go into YouTube, watching the Raja Jackson video. Let's look up Raja, R-A-J-A, Jackson, and seeing the video. Taryn, have you seen the video?
I have.
We're going to assume, if you're back on the podcast at this point, that either A, you didn't pause the podcast and go to the video, or B, you've already seen the video, okay? Or C, you listened to directions and paused, watched the video, came back. One of the three. Okay, so here's what happened, okay? We're going to talk about the incident. We can talk a little bit about the buildup, but this is the part that people care about. Raja Jackson gets in the ring. He's not a quote-unquote professional wrestler. He's a professional MMA fighter, so to speak. He gets in the ring. He body slams someone in a way that a wrestler doesn't body slam someone. He body slams someone as someone would do in a real fight, like in a fight. And it looks like the guy he slams, who is a quote-unquote professional wrestler, but he's an independent wrestler. It's not important qualification for this. So the slam, I think, looks like was what renders him unconscious, most likely. But here's the part where it went viral. Raja gets on top of him, mounts him, so to speak, sits on his chest, and I don't know, 20 plus like unchecked punches straight to the face, probably enough to kill somebody. Thank God. I'm told the guy's making a recovery, but there's nothing fake about punches directly to the head. And this guy was laying unconscious in the ring for a scary amount of time. The other wrestlers had to pull Jackson off. So without saying anything else, Taryn, we will, obviously. Just that incident in isolation. Do you think that results in criminal charges?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I think it's pretty clear battery. But you know what it made me think of was Hackbart, the Cincinnati Bengals. Consent to play the game doesn't extend to actions outside of the rules. So here, Raja's behavior crosses that boundary and therefore can be something that is chargeable.
So, Taryn, this brings up one of my favorite Twitter jokes, as you know, assault or assumption of the risk, right? You get into a wrestling ring, someone gets hurt. You just leave it at that. Assumption of the risk. You play a football game, someone gets hurt. The assumption of the risk could be there. But it has to be a type of physical activity that is inherent to the sport. 20 unchecked punches to the head has nothing to do with wrestling. Wrestling is a lot of things. Maybe it looks like they're punches, but they're, as they say in the biz, working punches, brother. Taryn, I got you. But these are in the biz. We call these shoot punches. These are real punches. Like these are MMA level punches. These are not punches by, like a baby or like a 5-year-old. These are punches by a son of a legendary MMA fighter. And these punches looked at every level of that. So the background, and it's weird, right? And I've seen a lot of good breakdowns on it. Essentially before the fight, I think Raja was there to make an appearance. He's like a pseudo Twitch guy. He's a streamer, right? Dad's got a big name, right? People pay attention to who Raja Jackson is. He's an amateur fighter. So he goes to this event, and the guy that ends up unconscious and getting punched basically cracks a beer over Raja Jackson's head. Is that it? Was it part of the work? Was it part of this? We have no idea, right? We just see the video. We then have a video after this beer incident of getting hit over the head of Raja Jackson basically telling his streamers, like he's on a live stream, he's telling his streamers like, hey, I'm going to knock this guy out. And he's saying the thing that he's going to do. So, some people are viewing the delay in criminal charges as, hey, there's going to be no criminal charge. They would have pressed them already. The other part that there might be a delay, and again, I'm not rooting for this. I'm just saying let's not assume anything. There's a lot of a lot of extrinsic evidence that the police have to kind of look into here. So this is not an open and shut case. It happened in a wrestling ring, right? Could it be part of it? Could it be a work or not? But at the end of the day, at least my opinion, my untrained eye, I don't think there's a world that you can fake punches like that. And other wrestlers have since come out and said it, wasn't a work. Certainly, you could be faking that. The video, regardless of what the justification was, you're not saying self-defense. There's been a proper cool-down period. This incident with the beer happened like at least an hour before, right? All that stuff. At the end of the day, you have this really gruesome image of a guy laying unconscious after 20 unchecked punches to the head. Thank God the guy didn't die. At a minimum, right? We have this interesting question of assault, but yeah, I mean, this is certainly a developing story.
Yeah.
That's it, Taryn? Nothing to add? I got everything?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. Yeah. I got everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Taryn, let's listen, I got kids screaming, got the nanny issues. You're gonna ask me about it. I gotta start watching the kids. Wife's got mahjong at some point. So there's a lot of things. Yes. Taryn, the more we stay on this podcast, the more I'm just going to reveal to you about the chaos that exists.
People don't know that your wife is an 85-year-old Chinese woman.
No, they didn't. But they do now. So now they do. If you don't know, now you know. You know. Okay. So Taryn, give me last but not least, let's hit on the College Sports Commission. A pretty big update in our world. I hear, and this Braley Keller, friend of the show, who's at Open Doors, released a poll, or at least I guess his newsletter last week, that in the people that he's speaking to on the executive side of college sports, they don't feel that people are using the College Sports Commission's their NIL Go platform. They think about 50% of deals are going unreported, and that's Braley Keller. Shout out to friend of the show, Braley Keller. That's an unofficial poll. It's like the Quinnipiac polls that said that, that Hillary was going to win the election. The Quinnipiac polls are really confident. So we're not always sure about polls. Okay. But here we are. College Sports Commission, not coincidentally, releases their own numbers the next week. Taryn, let's get into what the numbers say.
Yeah. I think our listeners know about the College Sports Commission. This was set up in the aftermath of House v. NCAA. And part of its role is to operate the NIL Go platform. This is the clearinghouse that was set up in conjunction with Deloitte, and deals are supposed to flow through there. And so far, tens of millions of dollars in approved deals have gone through. This is in addition to the revenue sharing frameworks. So the deals that are supposed to be submitted are those that are above $600 in value, and they're supposed to determine whether fair market value is being adequately gauged by the agreement. So you're not supposed to have agreements that are like far outside of the fair market value, and that market value is determined by Deloitte's algorithm, the model that they've put together. So it appears that a significant number of students are using it. So 8,300 deals seems like a significant number. $80 million really seems like a significant number. And so it'll be interesting to see how, if at all, the commission chooses to police these things. We've talked a lot about collective bargaining on this episode, and part of the reason why the professional sports leagues can enforce their rules is because they have these collective bargaining agreements that they can fall back on, and that doesn't exist here. The settlement exists, but the settlement doesn't preclude future lawsuits and future cases, people being aggrieved and bringing those cases forward. So it's something where if the College Sports Commission chooses to come down on anyone, we saw that they had hinted that they were going to go after collectives. They stepped back from that. If they actually try to make an example of anyone, are they going to be able to go forward with it? They should be very selective about whatever target they choose if they decide to go that route. So that's something that I'm paying attention to, but great that that the commission has released those initial numbers.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to add on that. I guess I'll state the obvious, right? To the extent that only 50% of deals are reporting, which again we'll assume to be true for this exercise, the numbers that Taryn just read out, multiply them by 2, and it's even bigger than people thought it was. So I had to call someone from the Long Island Business Journal, called the firm. They're like, can Dan give a quote on exciting trends in sports? And the firm's like, yeah, of course he can. And I gave a quote to this journalist. We'll see if the article comes out. Does it come out? And he goes, what's exciting in sports? And I'm like, we talk about streaming deals, or we could talk about College Sports Commission, NIL Go, how much money these athletes are making versus what they made before. And he goes, well, how much did they make before? And I go, we don't know. We will never know. It's not being reported. And he's like, well, why is that exciting? I'm like, because now we know. The nerds find that exciting. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. I find it exciting. I'm a nerd.
I think it's exciting, and it's cool that we've seen something grow from an idea that we used to talk about 10 years ago to being actually in effect. And for all the talk about college sports dying, people are still watching. I think a lot of us are nostalgic for the type of team building that existed in prior generations, and maybe we'll get back to that. But people still care. People are still watching.
Okay, let's you made the joke about Belichick. I think they had like 60 plus new players, 50 plus new players. I don't like that. I don't think that's beneficial to anybody. That a complete overhaul of a roster. So yes, steps in the right direction. I'm happy to continue to be on record that like way more work needs to be done. Did you see the commercial during the UNC game by that Texas Tech booster about the Saving College Sports legislation? I thought that was interesting. What's the guy's name? Cody Campbell. Yes, Texas Tech booster. He puts out this. It's usually the type of commercial you see when it's like someone's running for like local office, and like it kind of took me for a second. I'm like, who is this person? But he wants extra attention on these federal legislation. So people are still talking about it, and I still think there's work to be done. Shout out to Texas Tech. I think they just crack the top 25? Is that the number? I think they're in that 25, something like that
for the rankings.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but I don't know. I'll say this, and then we can get on to our what to watch for, and we'll call it the day before I get yelled at by everybody in my household. But we have a lot of week one upsets. I think what we're seeing is a byproduct of this 50-player roster turnover that UNC is having, or this one or that one. The preseason projections are just way off. So you're having teams get massive losses, right? People are really hammering Arch Manning in Texas. Like, okay, I think that one's a little overblown. The Texas defense looked fantastic. If they can hold Ohio State to 14 points, I know you're a Buckeye, Taryn, so shout out to your Buckeyes. But there's some big upsets that just don't quite make sense. And that will happen in this era of NIL with so much roster turnover. I'm okay with roster turnover, but like, I don't know, 100% roster turnover is insane. It's just no way to put it.
I just want people to unpack their bags, because if we boil college sports down to like what we actually enjoy and appreciate about it, it's not necessarily the quality of play, right? It's a significant step down from the professional version of any league that you're watching. Maybe there's an argument that the homogeneity of like the NBA is not as good as watching college teams play differently, but they're not as good. The shot making isn't as good. They're not as athletic. It's just a different game. But what we love about college sports is the pageantry, the fact that these are young people who are still growing and developing and changing. You get to watch them over a period of time. And that doesn't happen unless they invest themselves fully in the place where they are. They're not looking to what's the next move. And so I want to see roster continuity for that reason too. I think being part of a place, having a place that you can go back to, not 4 schools in 5 years, is meaningful to college athletes beyond just the immediacy of being paid. So if we can reach some sort of agreement where that happens, which we probably need some sort of collective bargaining for it, then I think that'll be beneficial to everyone.
Agreed. Okay, Taryn, let's move this to the final segment of the podcast that's sponsored by Hair Product. I need some. Not a real sponsor. I had to clarify just in case people thought that was a real thing. Okay. So, Taryn, I got 3 things. I'm going to rattle off mine quick, and then I'm going to give it to you. I'm just going to hammer through these. Number 1, I posted about it on social, going to the NBA Hall of Fame ceremony this weekend. Not my client, people asked. Our firm has represented Carmelo Anthony since he was a New York Knick, long time. Part of the reason I wanted to come to this firm, I knew they represented clients like that. That was cool. And obviously, since I've been here, I've worked on a lot of his deals. So someone was like, "How long have you been at this firm?" And I'm like, I didn't bring Melo into the firm because hadn't graduated law school yet. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, obviously. But shout out to Melo, shout out to Team Melo, all the good people that work around him. So excited to head down. It's kind of an odd thing. It's at Foxwoods on Friday, and then we have to get in cars and get a different hotel for Springfield, Massachusetts. Doesn't make any sense. I'm just telling you that's the itinerary. It makes no sense. It's not like there aren't casinos in Massachusetts. Like, we certainly could have done that. Now, if you had 2 different hotel rooms on back-to-back nights, that makes no sense. It makes playing golf very hard on Saturday morning. But when there's a will, Taryn, there's a way. We will find a way. We'll figure it out. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, you want to hear the nanny story, or you want to hear my bet of the year? Nanny story or bet of the year? You pick.
Nanny story.
Nanny story quick, and bet of the year, and then I'll give it to you. Nanny story. We had an au pair for 2 years. Okay, I think I've referenced this in the podcast. She was excellent. If she listens to this podcast, she's the best. Augustina. We love Augustina. She was the best. She's from Argentina.
We have a huge Argentinian contingent listening to this podcast.
We do. I remember at one point the website had a very big Japanese contingent, and was like, we had one Shohei Ohtani article that was on the website, and it like exploded overnight. And I'm like, what is happening? What is going on in Japan? I'm like, oh, that Ohtani article went viral in Japan.
You don't get to number 2 sports law podcast without being big in Japan.
Exactly. So let's see. Shout out to our Argentine listeners. I've learned a lot about Argentinian culture, soccer players. Messi, shout out to Messi, not a listener of the podcast by any means. But we had Augustina for 2 years. She was fantastic. We loved her. We wanted to use the same au pair program because, we like, it's a whole thing. You get immersed in the cultures and blah, 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 blah. And then we got a new au pair. It was not good. It was just not a fit without getting into it. So mutual decision. She's got to go. Okay. So then, Taryn, we hit the waiver wire, and getting an au pair takes a long process. So we're trying to fill the gap. We try to find a new nanny. Okay. We hired a new nanny this week, starting this week. We went to the interview process. Taryn, she's no longer employed by the Lust household. So now, in the past 2 weeks, we have employed 3 different caretakers, and now a 4th because Rachel's cousin lives very close to us, and she offered to help for the time being. So now we have 4 different people that have taken care of our kids in 2 weeks. Let's just say the process is chaos. Taryn, ask me the question that you want to ask. What happened? Just ask me what happened. I'll answer. I'll be honest.
What happened?
Okay. Put it this way, and God be willing, my kids will be old enough at one point to figure out how to download and listen to podcasts. My kids are lovely. They're sweet. They're gorgeous. I have 2 girls, 6 and 4. I talk about them all day. I'd like to think of my children, and really any 6-year-old or any 4-year-old or any 5-year-old, as kind of like a Sour Patch Kid. Taryn, are you familiar with the Sour Patch Kid commercials and the slogan?
Yeah. They're sour, then they're sweet.
Yeah. That's what they are.
Children are sour and sweet. Yeah.
They had this incredible relationship with our, with Augustina for 2 years. It was fantastic. It's great. And then someone new comes into their life, and they're going to be a little bit sour. They're going to get there. They're like a warhead, right? You ever have warheads back in the day?
Yes.
But not like Sour Patch. Sour Patch really aren't sour. They're like basically sweet the entire time. Warheads are really, really sour, and then they're really, really sweet. Yeah. My kids are more like warheads. Oh. They are a tough egg to crack. It doesn't take that long to crack them. Give it like 3 days. God be willing, 3 days.
In defense of your younger daughter, she's had to watch the Mets starting rotation all year, and that can make anyone sour.
You joke. My youngest daughter's first understanding of sports was the St. John's basketball team, and we watched the Jimmy Fallon video. She was getting into St. John's, Zuby. Like she understood players, and then like she didn't understand like, why are they not in the tournament anymore, Daddy? And I'm like, can't explain that. Speaking of things it's hard to explain. Anyway, so the nannies left. My daughters kind of bullied them, and the nannies did not have the, they got bullied by children, and they couldn't stand it for 2-3 days. And now my kids, it's like, the scene in like Jurassic Park when they're like, they're evolving. I don't know if they actually said that, but it's like, that's the essence of what they said. My kids are getting smarter, and they now know if someone comes into their life that they don't like, and they're like, a little bit warheady, they're going to go away. So it's a really bad lesson that's happening, but we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it, Taryn. So if you live in New York and you are aware, this is not what I intend to do in this podcast. Let's just say we're looking at the waiver wire right now. We're looking at it. We're looking at all options. Okay, Taryn, I'm going to give it to you for your what to watch for, and then I will end with my future of the year.
Yeah, when I was in college, a lot of the times in order to watch big sports events, I would have to stream them.
Allegedly, hypothetically.
And sometimes, allegedly, those were on websites that aren't exactly legal.
Hypothetically.
Allegedly. Yeah, possibly. And so one of those sites that I'm aware of that I may or may not have used at some point, Stream East, was shut down today, or yesterday, I guess. And that is that's a bummer for a lot of people that utilize that, especially as the NFL season is going to kick off on Thursday night. But if you have the urge to watch sports, you can use possibly a different website.
Just don't give a recommendation, Darren. That's going to get us in trouble. Just listen. If hypothetically, hypothetically, if someone were to go to Google and you just write the word whatever event you're looking for, and you write the word streaming next to it, just say it's going to be very hard to shut down the entire streaming market. You can shut down Stream East. You're not going to shut down the streaming market. Now, Taryn, we're going to tie this back into law because we didn't talk about this last week, but I find it interesting, right? UFC does a deal with Paramount. They have killed their pay-per-view model. It doesn't exist anymore. The reason that Stream East does really well for, like people use Stream East or any of these sites, I don't know anymore, or else I would say them because I don't know any other sites that do that, is because of the pay-per-view model, right? It's really beneficial or advantageous for pay-per-view. If you want to watch an NFL game, like, okay, Red Zone is fine. Red Zone, people don't have Red Zone. In theory, you could stream Red Zone. But for the pay-per-view model that was UFC, people could just stream it. They weren't putting any money in UFC's pocket. So what does UFC do? I would say, Dana's not going to admit this, but I think in partial part, because they get bought by, TKO that owns WWE. WWE doesn't, they lost the pay-per-view model years ago, in part because of this reason as well. But they basically tell Paramount, you can put all of our events on your platform. There's no pay-per-view. The more you pay us, that'll eat into what the consumers were paying us for pay-per-view. Everything's free. Once you have a subscription to Paramount, and that's going to kill the business of these streamers a little bit. So yeah, I mean, this is all, you never, it's like, when they say like, once something's on the internet, it can never really be deleted. Same concept. Like there will always be people illegally streaming stuff. But if UFC all of a sudden is getting paid independent of these streamers, it's now no longer UFC's problem. It's a Paramount problem, certainly. But it's no longer a UFC problem. So I imagine that was probably a fun item that was going back and forth on the red lines on this particular issue when, at least from all reports, Paramount came in with a Godfather offer. By the way, Taryn, we like to give shout outs to other podcasts. We gave a shout out to Gabe Feldman's podcast. I stumbled across The Varsity by John Orand. Are you familiar with John Orand from Puck? He used to be at Sports Business Daily. He's got a very good podcast. I think it's like a sister. I don't know John Orand. He's not a friend of the show. Well, not that he's an enemy. I don't know.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Sure. Yep.
The Varsity. I would tell you The Varsity is a very good sports business podcast. That's one for you, Taryn. Okay, yeah. Taryn, lock of the year. I don't want to call it a lock, but this is my pick. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. Taryn. Let me ask you a question before I give you the research. And I don't want you to Google this, Mike. I don't want you to edit this. Taryn is not allowed to do research. Taryn, who do you think of all of the rookie wide receivers is going to have the most receiving yards without saying anything else?
The rookie receiver.
Have you done your fantasy drafts even, Taryn?
Yeah.
Have you even done fantasy drafts?
Yeah.
I've done 5, Taryn. I am locked into the research.
I think McMillan.
McMillan is the guess. McMillan's probably right. Okay, Taryn, but that's interesting. Why is Dan bringing that up? That sounds like a really weird thing Dan is saying. Taryn, was Ted McMillan the first wide receiver drafted in the NFL draft?
Was he?
He was not. Travis Hunter. Heisman Trophy winning Travis Hunter. Oh, yeah. He's not really a wide receiver. He's really a cornerback. Okay. Is he? Is he? Now, if Travis Hunter was drafted in the second round, I'd say sure. He's probably a cornerback or a lower level wide receiver. Taryn, not only was he drafted second overall, we had the Jaguars give up an incredible trade package to get up and get him. Okay. First year coach, Liam Cohn, right? They put a lot of draft capital behind this guy. And for all intents and purposes, they come out this past week or two, they say he's going to get about 85% of snaps. That's generally what a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 gets. So they're telling you every indication. They traded up to get him. They're telling he's going to get the snap count. He's playing both ends in practice. Listen, you've got to put your money where your mouth is. They traded up all these picks to get him. And if they don't play him 2 ways, they don't play him full-time 2 ways, he's not worth the draft package they traded up. He's certainly not worth a second round pick or second overall pick. Taryn, here's the thing. Okay. Let's throw this out. Let's throw out this dual thing that's confusing people. We know, don't worry about the cornerback piece for a second. Yes, maybe risk of injury, sure. We can dial that up a little bit. But a wide receiver that we know is going to be playing at least 80% of the snaps, right? That's what we think at this point. That's the plan. A top 10 wide receiver should, we think as a benchmark, right, have 1,000 yards receiving. A top 10 wide receiver, they're going to get the rock, right, Taryn?
Yeah, in theory.
That is not Travis Hunter's line, okay? Since 2010, okay, watch this. This is my fun fact for you, Taryn. There have been 20 wide receivers that have been top 10 picks since 2010, okay? Of those 20, 14 have cleared this magic number that I'm about to tell you. Travis Hunter's over-under for yardage is 750 and a half yards, 750. 14 of 20 receivers drafted in the top 10 in the last 15 years have hit that number. Jamar Chase crushed it, had 1,400 yards. Justin Jefferson, 1,400 yards. Julio Jones, 1,000. AJ Green, 1,000. Just trust me. If you're a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver, you're going to get 750 yards absent some type of injury. So I think the line is wrong. I think people are really not respecting that the Jaguars are insane, whether you think it was a good pick or not. People's job security depends on Travis Hunter being a smash hit, not just a good wide receiver and not just a good cornerback, being great at both. And you can't really control if you're a good cornerback. I mean, you can, right, if you have picks and whatnot, but certainly the offense can throw the ball, right? Trevor Lawrence can hunt down Travis Hunter, and there's really no second option other than Brian Thomas. So I think Travis Hunter's going to get the ball a ton.
Brian Thomas is a top 10 receiver.
Taryn, I'm not talking about another 1,100, 1,200 yards. I'm talking about 750.
But they also have backs that are.
Oh, Taryn, this is how I know you're not doing your fantasy prep.
Backs.
They have all the 3 of their backs, Tootin, Etienne, and Bigsby. They're all being drafted outside the top 30 running backs. They have no real running back weapon. They have Brian Thomas, and that's it.
That's because he was hurt, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to utilize him in the passing game.
Taryn,
and Bigsby, I think, as well.
Taryn, fine. 750 yards is nothing. It is not. It is a very low number.
I'm just saying that to say that they are definitely going to be targeting that much. I think they're going to play a lot of defensive back.
Taryn, we found a new bet. Okay, it's a friendly wager. You and I we talk about the terms offline. We're going to remember this. I already have a lot of my own personal money on it. Take Taryn's side, take my side. I don't really care. Here, we're going to put an injury caveat on it because it's me and you. If he plays 13 games, the bet is live. Fair?
Mm-hmm. 13 games.
13 games, he will exceed that number. That's the bet. Deal? In?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. That's the bet. And
he's got to get 60 yards a game in those games. But yeah.
See, do you see how little that number is? 60 yards a game?
I'll still take the bet. Just for the competition. But that's
you're not feeling that good about that bet because my side is.
I think he could get 50, playing the entire year, right? That's just 50 yards a game.
Oh, that's basically nothing. That's basically a wide receiver 3.5. That is nothing. And he's certainly. Who?
Still on?
What?
If Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, bet still on?
Yeah. I'm not giving all the carve outs. That's all I want. They're invested in I mean, listen, Brian Thomas was not as high of a pick as Travis Hunter. They're invested in Travis Hunter. Their job security depends on Travis Hunter. Brian Thomas was from the old administration. So I'm just saying, I think that number is about.
Are famous for getting things right. So
they are. I will say, I think that the over-under on that number, I have some action on the alt line of Travis Hunter getting 1,000 yards. I think that number is so far off, but that's it. You can take it, not take it. People ask for what my biggest bet of the year is. That is my single biggest exposure in all of pro football. That's the bet. Travis Hunter over 750 yards. Taryn, that's it. We're good. We don't do a conduct detrimental fantasy football league. I am the sole reigning champion. Actually, that's not true. Evan beat me in the finals. Shout out to Evan Mattel. But we do what we can here. Taryn, I think that's it. I think we're ready to end this. Good?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. That'll do it for all of us here at Conduct Detrimental. I just filed our Conduct Detrimental tax returns with the extension. They were due September 15th. We got them filed on time. A lot of business happening on Conduct. Next time we have Mike on. We have a lot of big things in the works. We did our call to arms about people coming out with new projects, new works. I've got a couple emails from some of you I have to still respond to, but we're working on it. We have some big things in the works. Appreciate everyone's involvement behind the scenes and their patience while the Lust household just deals with absolute chaos. That's it, Taryn. We'll put this episode in the books. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Taryn. Shout out to all of you for listening each and every week that we record a podcast, except for the last 2 weeks, which we did not record one. Is what it is. Okay, everybody. We'll put it in the books, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Sports Law Podcast. Conduct Detrimental.